Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our post-cabinet press conference. It is indeed a pleasure to introduce our Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, to address you.
Thank you very much, Minister Cox. A very good afternoon to you, members of the media, members of the national community. Today I am here to let the national community know that contrary to what has been promoted in the last week, as far as the government of Trinidad and Tobago is concerned and the business of the people of Trinidad and Tobago is concerned, there is no crisis in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, crisis means different things to different people. For us, the ship of state sails smoothly along. Let me take the opportunity through you, the media, to walk the national community through the developments of last week. Because if anybody picked up the conversation from last week, Thursday, and followed the nuances and the agendas at work, they would be grossly misled, largely by the way facts have been either distorted or ignored. First, let me begin by identifying myself. My name is Keith Rowley, and I was the same person who was dismissed from the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago in April 2008. From April 2008 to the general election of 2010, I had no inside knowledge or relationship with the government of Trinidad and Tobago. I was a backbencher. As a matter of fact, I sat on the opposite side of the parliament to my colleagues in the government who were running the show from the cabinet and so on. This matter of the allegations against Marlene McDonald, who subsequently became a cabinet minister, first came to my attention at the time of screening in let me be accurate with this. 2010, I became the leader of the PNM at Balisay House. And I then also became the opposition leader. We had screening processes in the party at the end of that term, 2014, 2015. There were two people who were raising then some allegations of misconduct about Ms. McDonald and her life in the Manning government in that period, 2008, 2009. Interestingly enough, these two people were two aspirants for the seat of Port of Spain South. One came for screening before in 2007 and wasn't successful. The other one came in 2015 and was also unsuccessful. So you had to take their enthusiasm with a pinch of salt. However, insofar as they concretized certain allegations, it turned out that that package of allegations was the same allegation, same package that went to the Integrity Commission around some foundation called Calabar. The first time that came into my jurisdiction was at the screening time, and that issue came up against an Integrity Commission conclusion that this matter was not worthy of further attention by the Integrity Commission. That happened under the Manning government of 2008 to 2010. So when it was raised with me, when I became leader of the PNM, it had already been dealt with, and there was this letter of exoneration that existed. We went to an election, and Ms. McDonald was elected handsomely in Port of Spain South, and I, as Prime Minister then, newly elected a cabinet, selected a cabinet. Soon after that, this same matter flared up again, largely driven by the same people, making reference to the same caliber, and saying that there was information about that which requires a more in-depth analysis and investigation, and it was added to by a number of allegations about what happened in the Ministry of Housing, because I had appointed Ms. McDonald to the Ministry of Housing, and she was now a part of my government. The government was new. I was just Prime Minister then. We had a new Minister of Housing, and the allegations of caliber and coming from the same set of people made serious allegations about how many houses she had and how many houses she got for other people and did this and that. I then agreed that in the face of this package of new information, as is being held out, that an investigation is warranted, and in order to allow that investigation to proceed without let or hindrance from the minister against whom the allegation was made, and in keeping with my party and my government's commitment to morality in public affairs, I removed Ms. McDonald from the Ministry of Housing so as to allow an unimpeded investigation to take place into this Calabar matter and the housing allegations and so on. That is what a Prime Minister is supposed to do. That is what I did. That investigation, as far as I'm aware, did not find any support for any of the allegations about houses and housing and so on. And of course, the Calabar second time around investigated ended with the Integrity Commission not being able to go forward, saying that they found no basis so to do. Up to this point, it's all reason. She was fired to allow an investigation to proceed. The investigation proceeded. It ended with her not having to face any further jeopardy from the Integrity Commission. When that happened, though, when she was brought back to deal with, to come back into her portfolio, this incident occurred of who is at Balizia, who is at President House with her, turned out to be a person who was of serious interest to the police and was known so to be. I took the decision then that a Minister of Government who was the MP for the area ought to have known that, and in fact I was advised that the MP didn't know that the person was of interest to the police, and therefore that person ought not to have been at President's house. What I was told when I took this position was that the person got there of their own free will, they accidentally got there, and so on and so on and so on. All kinds of interpretation. But I thought that that was not sufficiently satisfactory, and the minister was penalized by being removed from the portfolio immediately. And that is how it was. There was also a police investigation, one of many series of police investigations. At that time, police investigations were open-ended, never-ending, not pointing to any new situation, because in fact it was the same situation of Calabar that the police was investigating. That's what I was informed. And of course, having been there twice, it was reasonable for me to assume that, and I said so at the time, unless and until this police investigation finds something new and different, I will make this judgment call, and I made it. And for that, I'm to be held accountable. Last week, the police investigation delivered two things. One, it delivered new information, and two, it delivered a completely new batch of witnesses. So it was a completely different state of affairs. I, who at first when it was required, fired her from housing to allow an investigation to go forward. And I, who fired her for taking persons who ought not to have been taken up to the President's house for lack of judgment, I certainly had become on Thursday morning a Prime Minister who would fail to act in the face of the police's action. I thought that was a little unreasonable, especially since I first knew of this new development, not from any formal or official source. It came to me from, I think it was from Facebook. Here I was, head of the cabinet, head of National Security Council, and I'm being fed information from somebody's WhatsApp that a member of the cabinet is in police custody. For what, I don't know. I saw reference to Calabar, but of course remember Calabar's history. Calabar was once Integrity Commission, no problem. Twice Integrity Commission, no problem. The minister is now in custody at 4 o'clock in the morning, and reference to Calabar. And of course, my colleagues in the media, you having a frenzy, and the pontificators are out in full force. The Prime Minister must act, the Prime Minister must act. But look at my situation. I am seeing something in this way, having seen it before in those ways. The police is talking to her. I am told, not by any official source, that the DPP was involved in some way. And this happened on Thursday. I'm in Tobago. I said on Friday from Tobago that if this turns out to warrant an action by the Prime Minister, I will not hesitate to act. What exactly do you want me to do? You want me to act without knowing what is involved. You, people of the media, might have a little more freedom than I have in this situation. Because when I discovered that this was happening by the way I just told you, if I picked up my phone and called the commissioner of police or called the officer who is supposed to be doing it, I see his name in the papers or in the if I called any of them, I know what I'll be exposed to. I'll be exposed to allegations of interfering in police investigation or attempting to influence it, because I've seen that before. I've seen that before. I've seen it written by you in the media that the very fact that Patrick Manning called a police station to find out if his driver was arrested. I saw senior reporters writing in the papers that because he was Prime Minister, the very fact that he called the station could influence the police to look at the man. You've done that. And you would have done that on Friday or Thursday if I had interfered by asking the police or the DPP's office at work, what is this about? So you know what I did? I said I will wait until I'm sure in the not too distant future, in the very near future, the police will be in a position to say something and I will be properly informed. Only then will I know what I'm dealing with and what action is required of me. Why is it so wrong to do that? So this happened on Thursday morning. I'm waiting on Friday, and every time you speak to me, I said, I have no new information other than what you have put in the newspapers. And you don't really expect the Prime Minister to act on what is in the papers, do you? Because from time to time, you're good in the papers, but from time to time, you're not all that good. So what is reasonable in this situation? I give a commitment that once I am clear that the investigations have concluded and they have turned up a position, I didn't even say then that I'm properly informed. I simply wanted to know from an official source what was happening. Because Friday, Saturday, no new information. As Prime Minister of this country and as Chairman of the National Security Council, where a minister is in custody, the systems in this country are such that they're so secure that nobody in officialdom communicated with me as Prime Minister to indicate that there is substance to what is going on here, either before or during, that a minister is in custody for this reason. But I wasn't making a case of that. I was simply saying, police, DPP, let me see what comes out of it, because I expect it to happen in short order. But there are some people saying that the minute I heard, hear it, huh? The minute I heard that the DPP had granted clearance for the police to proceed, I should have fired the minister. Heard, but heard from whom? Heard from whom? The media. That's like, I see it in the paper, so it's true. That's what you're asking the Prime Minister to do. And here I'm waiting. The first time I had any information on this matter from an official source came to me at about 10:30 on Sunday night. That was the first time an official told me, in my official capacity as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, that this minister, and the information I was getting then, wasn't that she was being questioned or she was being, that the minister is being charged. Charges were being written at that time. So for the first time, I now know exactly what the situation is. That's Sunday night. And by Monday morning, you in the media would know that by Monday morning, steps were taken to have the minister removed from the cabinet. What is so wrong with that? What is so wrong about that? The minister has 2 appointments which were given to her by me in my capacity as Prime Minister. 1, Minister to the Cabinet. As a member of Parliament elected by the people, which I can't touch, but selected for the Cabinet, which I did, I now remove that offer by revoking her appointment through my hand to the President. Having been told officially on Sunday night, by Monday morning, all that was in train, and that was effected by midday on Monday. What is so wrong with that? And the next thing is that I had appointed her as an assistant at party headquarters, where a deputy political leader is a person who assists the political leader. That's all he do. Deputy political leader to assist the political leader. She assisted as legislative, meaning her responsibility was dealing with the parliamentary caucus, parliamentary and local government. I removed her from that position. So here it was, in simple, straightforward language, between Thursday and Monday. Thursday morning, Facebook notification, WhatsApp notification. Monday at 12 o'clock, the minister is no longer in the cabinet and no longer carries the title of deputy political leader. And of course, that being so, all hell break loose in Trinidad and Tobago, and the country is in crisis. But then, I must take issue with you in the media, because you completely at the disposal of other people's agendas. This is an issue of some citizens facing serious allegation of criminal conduct from 3 areas. 1, the government. 2, the public service. And 3, the private sector. Coming together in some conspiracy to improperly handle public money. That is the issue. That is the issue. The allegations, they are published in the papers. They're circulating on the internet. Persons, one a minister, another private sector person, and public servants. Because usually when these things happen, it involves that combination. Allegations now matter for the court, and we say let the law take its course. We can do no more. We can do no less. But the whole issue that has been exercising us for the last, how many times? Last few hours, last few days, panel discussion, the country in crisis, the government collapse. It is the Prime Minister. I know, I have no doubt whatsoever, that there are people in this country who would have preferred for those allegations to have been made about me, and for me to be directly and personally responsible and held in handcuffs for public money. But since that can't be so, take the next best one, the Prime Minister's judgment. And my judgment, or lack thereof, has exercised you in the media, television, newspaper for days. And what was my judgment? I just outlined it to you. Wrongdoing in 2008 have nothing to do with me and my government. 2009, I wasn't even there. 2010, the government changed. The wrongdoing by the allegations you would have seen in the papers took place also continued 2011, 2012, 2013 under a different government. You know, you in the media have elements of that government calling on this Prime Minister to account for something that happened under two governments, none of which was mine. And between 2011 and 2013, when the public monies apparently were moving around, I wasn't aware as opposition leader that the government was on top of that. What I was aware of was that there was grave cynicism in this country. That you see where it involves white-collar crime and wrongdoing in Trinidad and Tobago, anything could happen and nothing will happen. That's what I'm aware of. But with the coming of this government, we gave a commitment to change that. And we didn't just give the commitment, we took a series of actions to change it. And where you are seeing a crisis today, we are saying to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, feel good about it. This is how it is supposed to happen. This is how it is happening for the first time. Exactly what you want to happen is happening. That if persons, especially public officials, misconduct themselves, there must be policing to identify the misconduct, and the persons must be held accountable, and it will end up as a trial in the courthouse where they're innocent until proven guilty. That is what you want, and when I say we are building a new society, that is what the new society is to expect. It's working. The system is working. And that is why, as Prime Minister, the police was completely independent and without let or hindrance or interference was able to arrest a minister of government and handle it as a police matter without the Minister of National Security even knowing, far less interfering, and the Prime Minister. I know there are a lot of people who would love to have heard it differently, that the party and the government wanted to protect the minister. Well, let me remind you people in the media who have a shorter memory than the public. There was a UNC minister, because I saw you printing that this is the first time a minister of government was arrested. Where did you get that from? You were not here when Daniel Singh was arrested? Wasn't Daniel Singh a minister of government? Arrested for murder? And other charges, I presume? And you know what happened then? The UNC didn't accept the decision of the DPP to instruct the police to charge their colleague for murder. They went to court to ask the court to overturn the DPP's authority to instruct the police to charge their colleague for murder, which had its origin with Sumer Singh in the management of public monies in Mayaro. You all forget that. You forget that completely. It forms no part of the discourse. But you spend the whole weekend trying to tell the country we're in a crisis because Marlene McDonald, who the Prime Minister had removed before, who had been cleared before on the very said matter, the Prime Minister is waiting to determine what is happening to take the action that is required. Trinidad and Tobago in a crisis and the government collapsed. So the government didn't collapse when Daniel Singh was arrested. The government didn't collapse when Ram Logan, the Attorney General, was fired. And Gary Griffith was fired on the same day. One for speaking the truth, one for telling lies. The government didn't collapse then. There was no panel discussion then. There was no prime ministerial judgment being called into question. No. You know why? Because in this country, we of the PNM, we know that we are different, and you know that too, and that's why you hold us to a different standard. So we expect, now that there's a PNM minister in this situation, you expect to hold us to the highest standard, but you don't hold others to that standard. And when a PNM Prime Minister says to you that we are building a new society, you know that's what you're going to get. Because for the first time in your time, or any time, white-collar criminals are now scared that something is going to happen. So those of the last kleptocracy, half of what they're carrying on with now is in their own defense. In their own defense. Worried like hell that for the first time, something is going to happen. And it didn't just happen by guess. Start with, you had to have policing. Policing that was resolute and putting nobody above the law. I distinctly recall this DPP telling the public that he instructed the police in an earlier time to look at a particular law in the Jacquarna matter under the Customs Act to deal with currency passage through our border in the airport. What became of that? You tell me, you're the press, you tell me. How many years it took plant-like substances to remain on the window unidentified? And how many years it took people to go to bed knowing that the prisons were a place of earnings to corrupt lawyers, UNC officials in particular, and prison gate will never come to a head. You had to have resolute policing in Trinidad and Tobago to begin the process of holding people accountable, especially white-collar criminals. And of course, how did we get a commissioner of police? The one that is there in office now, whose officers are carrying out this, what you want done, which is nobody being above the law and let the law take its course. How did that come about? It came about because we voted in the parliament for Gary Griffith, and the UNC voted for a continuation of Stephen Williams. Whatever that means, I won't say. I just tell you the fact. But I'll tell you more than that. The capacity of the police service to pursue white-collar criminals, be they politicians, public servants, or contractors, did not exist in Trinidad and Tobago in the eyes of the public. And that's why the cynicism was there, that nothing will happen. I gave you a commitment that will build that capacity. I went abroad with Minister Young and I spent significant time with the British and the National Crime Agency dealing with this matter. How does Trinidad and Tobago move from an area of cynicism where its police service, its agencies of state are unable to pursue white-collar criminals? And we got assistance. We got assistance. And that's why I'm saying that it's happening the way you want it to happen. What you're seeing here is what you expect to happen. If there is evidence of wrongdoing, it will be found by good policing and let the law take its course. And I have no doubt that this is not the end. It's the end of the beginning. Because I've said before that corruption had become a way of life in Trinidad and Tobago, and this country has to address it. And that's why I'm a little surprised that as it is being addressed, you could see that as a crisis. And all those who want to look around the corner to see what's going on, and they know what's happening around the corner about the future of the PNM and the future of the government and the future of the Prime Minister, well, let them do that. I am in the least bit worried about that. Because I wasn't elected to be re-elected. I was elected to fix this country's problems. And this is one of them that's being fixed. On Monday, I've instructed the Attorney General to give you, the media, and the people of Trinidad and Tobago, a comprehensive summary of what we have done and what we are doing with respect to crime fighting in this country. And crime fighting is not just murder. It is the functioning of the legal system in Trinidad and Tobago. We're not joking about this. That is how we're building the new society. Ensuring that when a matter goes to the courthouse, it doesn't start, they don't tell criminals, take me to court now, knowing that for the half of their life it wouldn't happen. We have told you, we have taken steps to deal with the systems in the court. You've seen opposition to it as we do it. We've told you we're increasing the number of judges, number of masters, putting new systems in place to ensure that the court processes work. In the next few weeks, we'll make an announcement about how many more courts will come into being. I will take you in great detail as to what we have done to allow this country to have more criminal courts and more civil courts, to work with the more judges so that your case doesn't take 20 years if you have to have more people dealing with the matter. And we've taken serious steps to reduce backlogs and remove backlogs in the system. It is working. It will get better. It is not a crisis. It is a ray of hope. For the first time, dealing with matters that were meant to be insoluble in our society. And if you want to trust my judgment, you'll be backing a good horse. Ladies and gentlemen, I have two conversations. One with you, the media, today, and one tonight publicly at City Hall. I saw persons taking issue with the fact that I am talking to the party faithful. But let me just say something to all of those people with that point of view. It is the party faithful that got me and my colleagues into government that gave this country a chance for this to be happening in Trinidad and Tobago. The party faithful. So I make no apologies to anyone for talking to the party faithful as and when I see fit or when they want to be spoken to. All those who thought there was no hope, this is more than hope. It is happening. Any questions? Yes, sir.
The issue of Mr. Gavin Simonet, former Senator Gavin Simonet, the issue of his appointment.
His offer. He wasn't appointed. Let me tell you about that since you raised it. From the moment I took the decision to revoke Ms. McDonald's appointment, I would automatically, by duty of care, to have to deal with that. There's now a vacancy. There are a number of things I could have done. I could have taken the portfolio, I could have given it to any other minister, I could have brought somebody, a lot of things. That situation, we had an experienced lawyer in the team already in the Senate. Much of what we're doing now in public admin and going forward requires some legal appreciation if it's available. And I thought then that that would have been a useful person to fill that slot. I see a lot being said about screening. The screening process and the appointment to the cabinet, a process that you talk to people on. There's so much you can do, but when you do that, the main thread in all of it relies on you either accepting or rejecting what is said to you. You will ask questions and you will get answers. The answers may cause you to go forward or not to go forward. Go forward confidently or hesitantly. Or you may want to investigate so as to, but that's fine, that's infinite. There's no question I can ask you the answer will cover every possibility. There's always room for surprise. Especially when things mean different things to different people.
Could you ask specifically if he had any legal issues?
The way, well, you see, your disqualification is not only legal or court issues. It could be bankruptcy. It could be if you beat your wife and so on. The question is simpler than that. And the question is, is there any situation that involves you, which you know of, which if it becomes public, will disqualify you from being considered for this position? That covers as wide a base as you could. And some people might feel that, well, boy, if I only beat my wife once, that don't disqualify me. I might become a radio announcer and that, and a columnist and so on. That's not a problem. Others will feel, I drink only on Fridays, and if my partner gives me an extra beer and I get caught on the way home, that don't disqualify me. Others would probably feel that if it's anything, it means different things to different people. You hold on. Yes. So when you ask questions, you get answers, and that covers the questions you may have asked. But there's always room for things outside the question to appear. Fortunately, in this situation, it appeared before the appointment was made, and what did I do? I simply said that, well, this is not acceptable, and therefore we can't go forward. And what happens after that? I've made an appointment. The vacancy has been filled by a minister of great competence. The Senate slot has been filled, and the ship of state in Trinidad and Tobago sails smoothly along. Yes, sir?
Yes, isn't it time to actually have a form, like a list of, say, 10 questions? So the wife beating will be one, the bankruptcy is another, the alcohol is another, and tick the box. And because I understand the generic thing that you're relying, but isn't it time to really...
Well, let's put it this way. A form has since been prepared and will become part of our process going forward, not to protect me, the individual, but to protect the office and the party. So that we are screening now. We've just screened a lot of people. And we are learning as we go along the way. We're 63 years old, but we're still learning. So before persons are made P&M candidates for the local election and going forward for all elections, a form will be signed by that person. So that if anything turns up after, you can't say, well, there was no due diligence, because that is now the fashionable phrase, no due diligence. But all the screenings that have taken place for the last 6 decades, you ask questions, you get answers. And sometimes even as you get the answer, you have to say, how do I take that answer? And sometimes, as I said, different things mean different things to different people. And sometimes you could be just plain lucky to have read it right when it was wrong.
You are going to make changes.
I just said that. You don't believe me. I have a copy of the form right now. Because...
The sentence of the state's mechanism.
Let me explain, please.
Right. If I could some of the earlier things that you said just before we get to the more recent development of Mr. Seminar, the matrix of circumstances that you had in front of you, you mentioned a number of different issues. Concerns about Ms. McDonald and housing, concerns about Ms. McDonald and Calabar, concerns about her ties to someone who you identified is of particular interest to the police. Looking back at the fact that you reinstated her a third time, that question of why do that when you have said in the past that the Integrity Commission is an ineffective, unreliable body, why stand on the exonerations from the Integrity Commission to justify that reinstatement?
Listen, you have to be in the moment, right? Otherwise, you can have great hindsight. And if what you're asking me is if I knew then what I know now, if I would have made that decision, the answer is no, I would not. Because what I know now, I didn't know then. I took you through the time frame of it. This matter was dealt with under the Manning government of 2008 and was concluded by the Integrity Commission. Whatever my view of the Integrity Commission is, in that situation, where they had done a piece of work under that government, I was not now required to go and reinvestigate that at the time of screening in 2010. Okay?
Just suspicion.
What is sufficient? As I stand before you now, how many commissioners of inquiry have been before? I'm Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago now. How many times have they raised suspicions about me personally? Right? And I had to go and I sat before commissions of inquiry inquiring to my conduct, where I was accused of all manner of evil. So I'm saying you have to balance it going forward. But there comes a point in time when you have that judgment call to make. The first time I removed Ms. McDonald, where I had the authority so to do, there was a series of allegations, most of which has died and found to be of no benefit to those who were making the allegation about the housing and how many houses she owned and so on. In fact, that is what really attracted my attention on that occasion, that they were saying that she owned HEC houses. You forgot that, yeah? That was one of the allegations. And that she was giving HEC, she bought an HEC house for some allegations that were quite concerning. So what did I do then? That was the first time I had a responsibility to act on Ms. McDonald. Those allegations largely turned out to be, one, not true at all about her owning houses. And I say that guardedly now because maybe tomorrow somebody might come and say that the police found that she owned houses. But in terms of determination at the time that all this housing story was not true and that the Calabar situation, having been looked at for a second time, was found not to be worthy of further investigation. That is the situation. And let me tell you something. That is a decision made in a certain context. She was elected after the stuff 2010. We are now to form the government. She's a senior member of the government. She's offered a cabinet portfolio, which she quickly lost to facilitate an investigation. Right? You are saying that maybe enough was said around that person that the person should not have been considered. But I said then, when I brought back Ms. McDonald the last time, I said, if new information turns up, then I will act. And that did not happen until last week. Up until that point, up until the point when I brought her back the last time, the situation was such that the circumstances, the same information I had is what the Integrity Commission had. They made rulings, and the police say, we're going to still look. And I said, fine, if you find anything, we will know, and we'll act appropriately.
Why take the risk given that police investigation, which was endeavoring to unearth that new information, was still ongoing? Why put her in a position where she was directly in contact with taxpayers' funds, with public office, with that height of public office?
Listen, being under investigation is not an indictment, because the investigation could easily, the corollary was that it could have found nothing, especially when two previous investigations by a different agency, an agency which specifically, right, to deal with persons in public life, and an agency that has available to it access to the police. So don't ask me to behave as though I am the be-all and end-all in the country in making a decision like that. It is a judgment I have to make. Surely you don't agree. But I'm saying when I made it, I was satisfied that it was a reasonable decision. You don't agree? We differ on that. But I'm saying now, given the new information and the new situation, I have no difficulty in accepting that she ought not to be there. And those were the terms and conditions under which she was returned. I said, if the police comes up with anything additional and any situation warranting my intervention, I will do it. So even as I'm talking to you now, there are people under investigation for a variety of things. Being under investigation, you make a judgment on it. And that was the judgment I made.
Not anytime speak with Mrs. McDonald one-on-one about the situation.
Good question, because that's a question too that should form part of the analysis. Yes, I spoke with Ms. McDonald on many occasions on this matter, more than one occasion. And of course, there's the little matter of cabinet government, the Westminster system, where the foundation of that is that members of the cabinet are required to be forthright with their colleagues, especially colleague number one, the Prime Minister. That's a requirement. As a matter of fact, this morning, I had the discussion at the cabinet, not for the first time, not for the second time, not for the third time, that members of cabinet are required to be forthright and truthful to their colleagues in the conduct of public business or matters relating to their sitting around that table. I say to you, we are building a new society, and in so doing, sometimes there is pain.
forthright with you at that time?
I am not going to go any further in trying to read and spell anything for you. My words are chosen very carefully. And I said, you asked me a question which I answered very clearly. You asked me if I had spoken to her about this matter before. The Calabar matter, the other matters were completely new, never formed part of the discussion or the investigations up to Thursday as far as I'm aware. Right? On the Calabar matter, yes, I spoke to her more than once about it. And I got answers when you added those, and in fact, in some cases, there were references to matter. So it can only go so far.
So you were satisfied at the time with her answers, despite the other facts that may have...
What other facts?
The fact that the police investigation was
That
still
was
ongoing.
the police had no facts at that stage. I just told you what you're seeing now.
Were you satisfied at the time?
At the time, before the new situation developed, I was satisfied that it was a reasonable decision to make because there was nothing in front of us which said that you are disqualified from this.
She assured you of her innocence?
What do you think she told me? What we talked about? Her guilt? Are you implying that she told me yes, she was guilty of taking public money? I told her yes, the other people. Is that what you're saying?
Were there any other
Are you
factors
implying that she told me about her guilt and I covered it up?
considered, besides
I am
the
asking you a
investigation?
question. That question you just asked me, whether she pled her innocence, are you implying that she did otherwise and I covered it up?
I'm asking a question.
What is the question?
Did she assure you of her innocence?
Yes, she did. On more than one occasion. If what?
Considered, besides the police investigation?
There were
related to
no
integrity?
other facts.
Any
Okay,
factors,
Mr. Wilson.
any political factors that you considered,
Such as what?
her relations within the South?
Certainly not. Certainly not. That does not form part of the new society. If there are costs to be paid, then we pay it and move on. If we lose a candidate in Port of Spain South, we find another one. It's as simple as that. Having done the right thing in the removal.
Prime Minister, you referred to a package of allegations that were made by two aspirants for the Port of Spain South seat. Are you suggesting that they may have been...
I'm not going to spend any of this valuable time in this press conference to discuss those aspirants. That is for you to do. Yes, Jules.
Just one Prime Minister, you said a couple of things. You said that a senior official, late Sunday night, 10:30 or so, informed you, that's when you officially were informed that charges were being written up concerning Ms. McDonald and others. One, was that person a part of the police service, DPP's office? And the second question, is that how that is supposed to be done? That information is given in advance of something like the writing up of charges?
Listen, I am not going to tell you who spoke to me. Right? I said to you, I was spoken to by an official, that official, right, being a member of the government, and that official told me that it is now official, having been so informed, that it is official, that this is taking place. So there's no conspiracy, no secrecy here. But I don't want to go telling you, X tell me and Y tell me, because let's face it, I hold the office of Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and people tell me all kind of things, even things about you. Eh? And it's not for me to go blabbing up my mouth about everything I'm told. It's for me to act reasonably. Right? And I tell you one thing though. If it is that you're not going to believe anything I tell you, then it simply means that you will have difficulty interfacing with this office. Because this office is required to act in a particular way. And that is why I couldn't just come out and say, oh, I heard from the neighbor next door that my Minister X has been so-and-so. Minister, call the president, say, fire the minister. No, we do this in a civil and systematic way. And that's what I'm saying to you. The gist of today's press conference is that there's no crisis in Trinidad and Tobago. There's no crisis. A minister of government has been alleged to have done wrong in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. The police has now found itself in a position of evidence to act against the minister. What crisis? And since the minister has to be removed, there's nobody in my government defending wrongdoing. Every comment you've heard from my colleagues is that let the law take its course. We empathize with the person. You know, as we say in the Christian religion, God loves the sinner, but he hates the sin.
I'm also wondering, Prime Minister, you talked about the issue of the party looking at its own screening process.
Well, this is not a party. This evening at 8 o'clock, this evening at 7 o'clock in City Hall, you mentioned party, we're not discussing party here. I'm not responding to any party question. I mentioned, right? I had a question from Sean asking whether we will document the answers to those questions, and I told him, yes, we will do that.
Was leading up to, if you had allowed me to ask, well, finish the question, Prime Minister, which was, as head of the cabinet, do state agencies such as the special branch and so on, do they get involved in the issue of, say, screening of briefs to you in terms of persons who are to be appointed?
Party screening?
No. In terms of members of cabinet. Let's say in the case of this instance, if you are...
That's easy to answer. If the special branch comes across information of national security considerations, they are required, and they do it on a daily basis. Right? National security issues, persons, agencies, local, they report. They put a report to the Prime Minister. And on the other hand, if the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago requires any specific information about an individual from a national security perspective, then the Prime Minister would ask for that information. But you don't do it as a party business. Party screening gets information about our screening and our individuals, our nominees. No, we don't do that.
So the follow-up being then that any of those state agencies present you with any such information concerning either Ms. McDonald or Mr. Simoneff that would have warranted any concern?
No, sir. That's precisely what I was saying to you between Thursday and Sunday night, that I have no information. Maybe you didn't believe me. You might say he's Prime Minister, he must know. I've seen that too. Minister Young is bound to know, and the Prime Minister bound to know, and they lick up Marlene. And you know who's saying that? The UNC opposition. For what reason, may I ask, pray tell? No. The system worked. It worked because it was being able to be carried out within the confines of the authority of the Independent Office of Commissioner of Police, directed by the Independent Office of the DPP, where evidence is being adduced that a person acted improperly and certain actions are required to be taken. That is what the new Trinidad and Tobago should be. Replacing this thing about you could do what you want, right? And nothing will happen. And I want to say something to anyway, let me leave that for this evening.
Minister, in the past week, have you reached out or contacted Ms. McDonald on this whole issue?
I spoke to her briefly once, and that's about it. Because as I said to you, I did indicate to her that the two positions that she would hold, I would have them withdrawn. But in terms of being in police custody on Thursday, Friday, thereabouts, as I said to you all up front, I have no new information. I know nothing more than you were publishing. And in fact, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I relied on what you were publishing.
Prudently granted to get some information. That's a senior member of the cabinet, a senior member in your party, a deputy political.
To get it from who? To get it from whom? Yeah, so yeah, you, so that you could run a program and say that I have been using my office as head of the National Security Council to come to the aid of a minister who was in police custody. I deprive you that.
Come to the aid to find out what's going on within the party.
But I said to the country through you, the media, that I expect that very soon, no matter how hours it was, the police will come to a position and I would be informed. And at that stage, whatever questions I may have would be answered.
Prime Minister, what about the circumstances under which Ms. McDonald was arrested and held? First arrested and then held.
I have no comment to make on the police work. I leave that for the Commissioner of Police and the Minister of National Security. I have no complaints. I am not involved in that. So I don't want to entertain that conversation.
You don't have a problem with the police coming?
I don't want at this time. I have no basis to entertain that conversation. The police is free to go towards a person of interest at any time that is convenient to the police in carrying out its duty. So I am not raising that as an issue because that's going to be another issue if I only comment upon it and I have no comment to make.
The citizens may be concerned about some of the maybe sort of haphazard way that it sounds like the special branch may get involved if they have information on someone who may be of interest to the government. Is there no way to standardize a procedure whereby, not necessarily on the party level, but from the time that someone is coming into public office, whether it's parliament, whether it's cabinet, to have some kind of background check be done so that is done?
Of course, there are ways of doing that. In fact, larger societies that have been doing this for a long time have evolved. I mean, like in the United States, there are legal systems in place, not just arbitrary, legal systems in place where if you are going to be moving into certain offices, you literally have to go for what they call confirmations. And the confirmation is, the process of confirmation in front of the politicians is accompanied by security vettings and viewings. So they have dealt with this in that structured way. But of course, they do it openly in the political arena. In Trinidad and Tobago, that's the last place we want to go, because anything dealing with a politician in this country ought not to be there. Because in the United States, the politicians screen and vet their judges. The politicians screen and judge their senior public servants. We, on the other hand, are evolving a system that they don't want the politicians anywhere near anything. So even the systems that they are using to answer your question and to give the country the satisfaction or the comfort that these people are vetted, those systems aren't available to us in the way we conduct our business. Maybe we might evolve to that over time. But even with those elaborate systems, they too have had failings. You may recall a vice president had to resign because of matters which evaded the screening process. Vice President Agnew had to resign. You understand? So there's no perfect system. There's always the possibility that something could happen. And when something happens, all I could ask of my countrymen, let us deal with it in a sane, sober, and civil way. There's no resistance to that. And the new society is calling on us to do that, but we must be assured that it will work. And that's why I'm saying to you, on this occasion, it has worked. And I expect that given the new systems in place, it will continue to work. But don't look for perfection, saying that if you do so and so, this will never happen. No. No matter how much you ring fence it, people have been known to climb through. So we will keep evolving. I just told you, based on what has happened this last week, I have already had drawn up for Balizé House a document which will be signed so that nobody could go forward as a candidate having not answered some interesting questions which will cover some bases. But you may not cover all the bases because something could ever, as we say in Tobago, you might not understand it. We say in Tobago, you never know where wind has come from to lean foul tail.
With all due respect, the system was not what prevented Gavin Simonet from entering the cabinet. It was internet sleuthing that went public a few hours before.
Why do you think so?
So what I'm saying
no, don't be so convinced. Right? What you know is not what I know. As Prime Minister, I happen to know a little more than you, and I keep saying this all the time. You are assuming something that is not right. And let's leave it at that.
My core question was, is there no way to formalize a special branch background check as a matter of course and procedure for every person who's taking public office?
Of course there's a way of doing that, but it has not been part of our system before, and it may very well be that the time has come for us to look at that.
The seat of Port of Spain South, are we likely to be seeing a by-election at any time, either now
Is there a vacancy in Port of Spain South now?
Some people are saying on ethical grounds there could be.
You see, one thing comes after the other. Until there's a vacancy in Port of Spain South, there can be no by-election. What creates a vacancy in Port of Spain South? The demise and absence of a member of parliament. Okay? So let's not jump the gun. That has not happened. That I do not know that is happening. So let tomorrow deal with them moral. My discretion? From where?
As political leader?
Where my discretion was, I exercised it.
Has she indicated to you she would like to stay on?
I have not raised this matter with her. I don't know.
Not concerned enough about it to raise it with her? Why not raise it with her? Or why not know that you'll raise it with her?
Listen, there are decisions that I will make, and as I make them, you'll be the first to know. Right? And in case you think that I'm doing anything unusual here, or being unethical because I expect the pontificators to jump on that, I had a visit, I'm not saying this in the context of what we are dealing with now, in the context of what prevails in parliaments. I visited the Indian parliament a few years ago with our ambassador. And what amazed me was the number of people in the parliament in that budget debate who were on criminal charges, including attempted murder. So don't go and say that because a person has been charged, they must resign the seat from the parliament. That is not a standard practice in the Commonwealth. But of course, different people hold themselves to different standards. And the question is, in Trinidad and Tobago, what standards we are evolving to. And the whole question of a new society is something that we need to be focusing on, right? Not trying to hold me responsible for something that happened in the Malian government and the Kamla Prasad Bisala government. You heard all jumping up and down, going outside in Gasparilla, jumping up and down about this collapse of the government and the thing was happening with her as Prime Minister. The monies were moving around. It is subsequent to that this government has encouraged an environment in which the police can act without fear or favor. And nobody's above the law, being protected by the law. Nobody's going to go to court to ask the judge to interdict the DPP's action. Nobody is doing that in this government. But you're talking about Rowley and Rowley judgment. Yeah, you call my name. I'm the Prime Minister of this country and I wear that badge of honor. There is no crisis here. What you have is a strong government making changes for the better and for the interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Prime Minister, one of the things concerning the charges of allegations thereof and so on concerns...
Joel, I think I'm going to end this press conference now. Can I tell you one thing? You see when we have this press conference and I allow you to come in here, all of you, and you come in, I stand up here until sometimes my feet hurt and I answer all your questions. But I'm not going to sit here and let the press conferences become, you come in here as accredited press people, and you have imps outside putting questions to you on your phone, and I'm standing here answering even my political opponents from outside. I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying, I just think that we've exhausted these questions. Okay? So if you have any new question, I will take questions on a new subject for 1 minute more. Any new questions on 1 minute more?
In retrospect, you're saying that you made a bad judgment call with respect to Ms. McDonald?
On hindsight, I would say yes, but at the time I only could work with the information I had. You know, you can look backwards and say, oh, this shouldn't have happened, that shouldn't have. At the time, I could only work with the information that I have. So let us not pretend that it was so. I read with great interest the charges that have been laid by the police and identify so much that was never part of this before. But you don't make that distinction because you have converted the subject not to one about persons who have done things wrong and got run afoul of the law and are now in the hands of the police. Your main interest is to see if you could pin this to the Prime Minister. I wish you luck. Good day. Thank you very much for coming.